Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajakaacharya Ashtotter Sada Sri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Ki. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistikhi. Today we are continuing to read from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, chapter 4, entitled The Characteristics of Rishabhadeva, text number 3. This is a prose verse. I'll probably read sections of it. Yasya Indra Spardamano Bhagavan Varshana Varshastat Bhagavan Varshana Vavarsatat Avadarya Bhagavan Rishabhadevo Yogeshvara Parahasyatma Yoga Mayaya Swavarsham Ajanabham Nama Bhya Varshat Yasya Indra Spardamano Bhagavan Varshana Varshatat Avadarya Bhagavan Rishabhadevo Yogeshvara Prahasayatma Yogamayaya Swavarsham Ajanabham Namabhya Varshat Yasya Indra Spardamano Bhagavan Varshana Varshatat Avadarya Bhagavan Rishabhadevo Yogeshvara Parahasyatma Yogamayaya Swavarsham Ajanabham Namabhya Varsat. So, you want to try?
Yasya Indraya Spradamano
Yasya Indra Spardamano
Bhagavan Varsena Varsya Shatar Avadaraya Bhagavan Rasabadeva Yogeshara Prahasyamatma Yogamaya Savasyam Ajanabham Nama Bhaya Varasat.
Mataji. Yasya Indra Spardamano Bhagavan Varshana Vavarshata
Avadaraya Bhagavan Rasabadeva
Shvara
Yogeshara
Prasahayatma Yogamayaya
Savasyam Ajanabham Nama
Ajanabham
Bhaya
Nama
Varasat.
Varshat. Word to word meaning, Yasya, of whom, he, indeed, Indraha, King Indra of heaven, Spardamanaha, being envious, Bhagavan, very opulent, Varshe, on Bharata Varsha, Navavarsha, did not pour water, Tat, that, Avadharya, knowing, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishabhadeva, Rishabhadeva, Yoga Ishvaraha, the Master of all mystic power, Prahasaya, smiling, Atma Yoga Mayaya, by his own spiritual potency, Swavarsham,
Swavarsham
on his place.
on his place.
Ajanabham,
Ajanabam
Ajanaba, Nama, named. Abhyavarshat, he poured water. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Indra, the king of heaven, who is very materially opulent, became envious of King Rishabhadeva. Consequently, he stopped pouring water on the planet known as Bharatavarsha. At that time, the Supreme Lord Rishabhadeva, the master of all mystic power, understood King Indra's purpose and smiled a little. Then, by his own prowess, through Yogamaya, his internal potency, he profusely poured water upon his own place, which was known as Ajanaba. Purport. We find the word Bhagavan used twice in this verse. Both King Indra and Rishabhadeva, the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, are described as Bhagavan. Sometimes Narada and Lord Brahma are also addressed as Bhagavan. The word Bhagavan means that one is a very opulent and powerful person like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narada or Indra. They are all addressed as Bhagavan due to their extraordinary opulence. King Rishabhadeva is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and therefore he was the original Bhagavan. Bhagavan with a capital B. Consequently, he is described herein as Yogeshwara, which indicates that he has the most powerful spiritual potency. He is not dependent on King Indra for water. He can supply water himself, and he did so in this case. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Yajnat bhavati parjanyaha. Due to the performance of yagna, clouds of water are manifest in the sky. Clouds and rainfall are under the management of Indra, the heavenly king. But when Indra is neglectful, the Supreme Lord himself, who is also known as Yajna or Yagnapati, takes the task upon himself. Consequently, there was sufficient rainfall in the place named Ajanaba. When Yagnapati wants to, he can do anything without the help of any subordinate. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is known as Almighty. In the present age of Kali, there will eventually be a great scarcity of water, anavrishti, for the general populace due to ignorance, and the scarcity of yagnic ingredients will neglect to perform yagnas. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam therefore advises, Yajnai Sankirtana Pirayai Yajantihi Sumedasaha. After all, yagna is meant to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this age of Kali, there is great scarcity and ignorance. Nonetheless, everyone can perform Sankirtana Yajna. Every family in every society can conduct Sankirtana Yajna at least every evening. In this way, there will be no disturbance or scarcity of rain. It is essential for the people in this age to perform the Sankirtana Yajna in order to be materially happy and to advance spiritually. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sanjeevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. This chapter begins with describing the opulence of Lord Rishabhadeva. The symptoms of the Supreme Lord, such as the marks on the bottom of his feet, then the ability to control the senses and the mind, not hankering for material enjoyment, winning the heart of the citizens, the brahmanas, the demigods, and the ministers, being glorified by great poets, having a well-built body with great prowess, strength, beauty, name, fame, influence, and enthusiasm. Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yasasa shriya jnana vairagayas jaiva channam bhaga itingana. So, the symptoms are getting exhibited by the Supreme Lord. As these symptoms are getting manifest, the godly and the qualities of Bhagavan are being manifest. Someone else is getting a different feeling, and that makes him go against what his job description is. Now, when we see examples like this, I personally feel it is a turn of King Indra or Prajapati Daksha or other devotees to go through these ups and downs in their life. So next turn could be mine, where I could be overcome by my own lower nature. So, when we look at these examples, we try to learn how not to behave in a particular circumstance and not to see the pastime as a fault-finding or a fault of that particular devotee. So that's the mindset I came to when reading this. So King Indra, king of the heaven, who is very materially opulent, he became envious of King Rishabhadeva, and as a result, he stopped giving rains. So King Indra is a demigod. Okay, so Bhagavad Gita purports, Prabhupada gives, who are the demigods? So they are the empowered administrators for the material affairs. And they are supposed to be assisting the Supreme Lord in carrying out the universal affairs. And they are also described as the authorized agents who work on behalf of the Supreme Lord. So these are the three ways demigods are described in the purports, especially in the 3rd chapter purports. The cycle of sacrifice is described. So, if you look at the word empowered administrator, which means there must be somebody who is giving you the power, who is empowering you with it, so that you can perform a particular service to the Lord. You need to perform a certain function, which is, in the case of Indra, to supply rain. So empowering means there must be somebody who's empowered, means there must be somebody who's empowering you, which means that source is more powerful than the receiver. So that's something, after getting empowered, one may forget. Even if you are empowered, you must be authorized to carry out a particular activity at a particular time. You may have a lot of skills and abilities, whatnot, but unless you are authorized to use them, you don't use it. So here Indra is also authorized supplying agent. And what is he meant to do? He is meant to act on behalf of the Supreme Lord and serve him, just like the bodily parts are meant to serve the whole body. That's how it is described. These assistants or the demigods are different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord. So the part is meant to serve the whole, and it can't function independently. That's from viewing the demigod point of view. Now we also know that Indra is a post, and a person will come and occupy that post. So how did a person who is a living entity gets to the level of that of Indra? Which means he must have performed a lot of pious activities, especially he must have done a lot of sacrifices, and more specifically, with my little knowledge, he must have done a lot of Ashvamedha yagnas to come to the position of Indra. So if you reflect and think about it, the sacrifice requires ingredients. The sacrifice requires qualified people. The sacrifice has to be done in a particular time with a pure consciousness, and you need to collect all the ingredients, perform austerity, be detached. So you have exhibited all these qualities, you are taking all the ingredients. Now where is all these ingredients coming from? Krishna explains that it is I who's the butter, the fire, the ingredients, the mantra, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagnau, Brahmanau Hutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. So it is I so Krishna describes that it is him. So for getting to the position of Lord Indra, you must have followed a process, and that process of yagna is also given by the Lord. So one need to understand that how we are taking everything from the Lord, and by a particular process we are getting elevated to the position of a demigod, and we are getting authorized to do a particular service. But at the same time, living entities being tatastha, they can fall on the either side, fall on the spiritual or the material side. So when the lower nature takes over, as Prabhupada writes in 1.1.2 purport, material world, there is a keen competition between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. But the devotee of the Lord rise above such competition. They do not compete with the materialist because they are on the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. Such transcendentalists, here's the point, they exhibit a quality. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else. Therefore, there is competition. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but are well-wishers to everyone. They strive to establish a competition-less society with God in the center. So if we define being envious as a problem, Prabhupada gives the analysis as to what causes envy. Competition. So if we are analyzing envy, one way of looking at it and understanding is through Prabhupada's purport in this particular section, where he talks about competition leading to envy. We'll go a little deeper into the aspect of envy. This section is from the book Manas Siksha by Her Grace Urmila Mataji. This is like a collection from various devotees who have spoken on Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Manas Siksha, where the aspect of envy is also described as one of the highway robbers who rob you of your wealth. So when you are progressing on the path of bhakti, one of the enemy you encounter is envy. Now, when we analyze it, and that too in the dress of a devotee, how we still internally maintain this envious nature, that's described. When we want to enjoy the material energy, that is half of the problem. But the most terrible offense when we commit is when we try to enjoy by means of our own spiritual activity. That's how it's described. Okay, as a materialist is envious, okay, but still you're wearing the dress of a devotee and still you're maintaining envy. So example is given as that of a Ravana. Ravana came to steal Sita wearing the robes of a sannyasi. When Sita invited him to take some refreshment, he said, No, I'm very renounced, I can't come in. So you must come here. So, applying on us, we think, I am disguised perfectly by changing my externals, putting tilak, wearing devotee dress. But internally, that tendency to steal Krishna's energy and enjoy Krishna's energy is there. So we can come to Krishna, we can change our dress and all that, but still if the motive is to steal Krishna's energy and enjoy, where is that tendency coming from? That tendency is coming from the weakness of heart. So this is what is called weakness of heart. The tendency to enjoy Krishna's internal energy and enjoy it for myself, and that too disguising in the form of a devotee. Now, how does this weakness of heart manifest? Hridaya daurbalyam. First is you are getting attached to things not related to Krishna. Then you become duplicitous, hypocritical. And the third is the matsaryam, which is envying others' progress, which is what I felt is relevant to today's discussion. Envying others' progress, which leads to slander. When we talk badly of others, humiliate them or offend them. Here, the offense is being committed by withholding the rain, which is meant for the citizens. And the citizens are all devotees of the Lord. So, in that way, the offense is getting committed. And just to finish the list, the fourth one is the desire for fame, but we'll try to focus on envy. So, it's coming from the weakness of heart. So, one of the manifestation of weakness of heart is envying others' progress, leading to talking badly, humiliating or offending them. And this further leads to the 6 enemies, which is Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada and Matsarya. So this gives us an understanding of envy, and that too very specifically in this case, you are kind of hurting the same hand which is trying to help you and trying to pull you, the same hand which has given you the blessings to be empowered, the same hand which authorized you to act in a particular position. You are hurting the same hand which put you in that particular position. Now that we have defined the cause, where it's coming from in competition, then reflecting on our own consciousness as to how we change the externals, but we don't still maintain that internal tendency to steal Krishna's potency. The third instance which came to my mind is Lord Kapila, when he describes devotional service to Mother Devahuti. There he mentions that one can perform devotional service in the mode of ignorance, where you could be performing devotional service to harm others or hate others with malefic intention in your heart, and one of the you could be envious of others and still want to compete with them, and for that you could be performing devotional service. So when we read all this, it's like coming in front of a mirror. So you can't escape, and you stand in front of it. It clearly shows what is inside you. Now, the same mirror example is given as a solution to envy. The same in that book, how do we overcome? So the solution is given in terms of serving the spiritual master. So they are very pure, and when we stand in front of them, they are like a mirror which reflects our own shortcomings. And when we serve them, it gives a starting point from where we can correct ourselves. So the Shastras are acting like mirror, the spiritual master acts like a mirror. But the advantage of spiritual master is that we can render service to the spiritual master by following his instructions, and also physically do service. So at that time, when we are in close proximity, all that bad nature will be brought out and it will be corrected. So from a solution point of view, I thought of discussing that Then spiritual master also gives you the strength to properly honor every living entity. Sakale sahane bala diya kurova nijamane spurahina. So he helps you develop humility and also gives you the strength to properly honor every living entity. In this case, to properly honor the Supreme Lord and not to envy him, and to take up the position of servant. Now the spiritual master and the Shastras, they give us the solution, but as practitioners, we also have to apply these solutions. Especially, I got reminded of this particular instance where Krishna instructs, give up this petty weakness of heart and rise. So we saw Hridaya Daurbalyam, the weakness of heart. So I felt I must consciously make effort to give up my weakness of heart. So Guru is helping, Shastras are helping. Still, I must put conscious effort to give up this petty weakness of heart and continue devotional service. As Krishna says, stand up and fight. Many instances he encourages Arjuna to stand up and fight. Tasmatvam uttishta yasho labasva jitva shatrun bhungsva rajyam samritam mayai vaite nihita purvam eva nimitta matram. So at that verse, when I read that, so envy is an enemy. So Krishna is encouraging to give up the petty weakness of heart, rise and perform devotional service and fight. And act as a medium. So nimitta matram. So you just act as a medium. So I'm no way qualified to suggest solutions to Indra, but if we are in the position of Indra, we should consider ourselves as an agent, as a medium by which the Lord is acting. We shouldn't stand in between the Lord's mercy flowing towards His devotees, and in fact we must be enthusiastic to act as a servant of the Lord. So this gives us the encouragement and the energy to stand up and fight against the enemy. For this is like a personal application, you can say. Second aspect I thought is the verse that is being quoted, Yajnai Sankirtana Prayar Yajantihi Sumedasaha. So when a lot of times we read this Sumedasaha. Sumedasaha are those intelligent people who reflect in their life and act properly. Sumedasaha. Now, if we reflect back in our own devotional life, we should be able to appreciate the fact that despite having these anarthas, we are given a chance by the spiritual master to engage in devotional service. We are allowed to enter the assembly of exalted devotees, sit with them side by side, hear Bhagavatam or work side by side and render devotional service, despite having all these anarthas. For example, in this current time, we check if the temperature is okay, if you're wearing this, then you come in. Imagine if we had a meter which checks, okay, this much, you got this much of envy, this much of lust, sorry. You can't enter the temple. So, how much the Lord is reciprocating despite our own anarthas. And the one that we're discussing here is that of envy. Despite all that, the Lord is reciprocating. Now, we should remember this again and again. At least I felt I must remember this again and again. I'm preaching to myself. There is this verses that we chant for forgiving, for begging forgiveness after we finish deity worship is that remembering this again and again. Iti samsmritya pranan sandarayami aham. So I felt that I must remember the fact that despite my anarthas, the Lord is reciprocating. I must remember this again and again and again and again, and thereby make so even the steel-framed heart will melt, considering that despite my disqualification, the Lord is allowing me to render devotional service. So that way I felt I can make my rascal mind as my friend and convince myself to give up this envy. Make your mind your best friend. Krishna describes one mechanism which I found useful is to reflect on how much the Lord is reciprocating despite having all this. How about if we give up, what do I want? I want to pure devotional service, or I want to maintain, keep all these with me, all the enemies, and partly I am also responsible for holding on to this. I must give it up. If I compare myself, how do I think, how do I feel, how do I act if I am overcome by envy? And then contrast that with how do I feel, how do I think, how do I act if I am without envy? So, stepping back, using your own intelligence, you do I did the contrast. As a tatastha, I can fall here or I can fall there. Okay, what was my experience? When I am envious, there's a heartburn, there's ill feeling, but somehow or other I am conditioned to experience some kind of lower rasa or a taste in feeling envious towards others, competing with others. It somehow got into my system when we are young, when I'm young, and there's a scarcity and you need to compete, you need to shoulder others, push others, and then you need to go and get. Unfortunately, I seem to be carrying that same mentality. But when I'm acting in that particular way, how did that make me think, feel, and act? And on the contrast, if you're given that security that there is abundance of service here, there is no insecurity, so you don't have to compete, so you don't have to feel envious materially. How, if you enter that internal potency of the Lord and take shelter of the Yogamaya of the Lord, and you perform devotional service in that mood, then reflect and see how did that make you think, feel, and act. In that way, what happens is you're confronting your own lower nature. So you're coming face to face with it, and you're able to analyze. Okay, this is what. This is how I feel, act, and think. If I'm overcome by envy, if I'm not, this is how I think, feel, and act. So you make the right choice. Krishna describes in 9th chapter, first verse, that I am giving you this knowledge, Arjuna. Why? Because you are non-envious. Ana suyave. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, because you're never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. So, for our own well-being and to qualify ourselves to receive the transcendental knowledge, which is most confidential, and for the knowledge to transform into realization, we must give up envy, especially envy towards those who have helped us to come in contact with the devotees, perform devotional service, to progress. So envying those who helped us. This is very specifically in this case about Lord Indra being envious of Rishabhadeva. So it is he who is the Yagnapati, as described in the second canto, Shriyaha Patir, Yagnapati, Prajapatir, Diyam Patir, Lokapatir, Dharapatihi. So he is the Yagnapati, he is the Prajapati, he is the one who gives you the intelligence, Diyam Pati. So to act in that particular role as Brahma or Indra, you need a lot of intelligence. Where is that coming from? The source is coming from the Lord. The ability in men, Krishna describes it's him. Sabdake Paurusham Rishu. So when we see extraordinary abilities in others, skills, and how, despite being young in age, younger than you, they could be progressing rapidly, and they could be empowered by the Lord to do various services which you may not be at the particular point. At that time, it is best to reflect that the Lord is empowering them, which means they are very dear to the Lord. So let us serve them who is very dear to the Lord. So that is another way of overcoming envy. So that same person whom we are envious of, we understand their superior position and accept it. It's a fact. So we are marginal. And why are we designed like this? We can't question the Lord. That's how we are. And there will always be devotees who are progressing in bhakti ahead of you, and they will be more empowered. So the best course of action is to take the lower position and try to serve them. In that way, you actually become very dear to the Lord, and you are qualified to receive transcendental knowledge, and thereby you come out of the material misery. So you analyze yourself. Do you want that lower taste of that rushing competition and heartburn and shouldering and pushing and winning? So you may get to that point, as time permitting, if I get to that prayers by Lord Indra, when he gets reformed, and he prays to the Lord, begging forgiveness. So this is in the Govardhan Leela. Just trying to... couldn't find the Krishna book in the temple hall. So this is Lord Indra after committed an offense on the feet of Lord Krishna. In that instance, he was pouring a lot of rain, which is more than what's required, and in an untimely way, and with the intention to drown the Vrajavasis and Vrindavan. Having his pride overcome, these are the words of Indra to Lord Krishna. My dear Lord, being puffed up by my false prestige, I thought that you had offended me by not allowing the cowherd men to perform the Indra yagna, and I thought you wanted to enjoy the offerings that were arranged for the sacrifice. So, if you see that it is the Lord who has authorized you to get the offerings, and after getting, you need to pass it on to the Supreme Lord. Now, the scenario has changed. The Lord himself has personally come to the material world and he is directly taking the offering. So then at that time, again, if you are enforcing that it must come through me and I will accept it. So, but the point is that the Lord is already here and he is directly accepting it. So the purpose is served, which means the purpose of every yajna is to please the Lord. So that's why it is good to know the purpose of the sacrifice is to please the Lord. And all the ingredients and the authorized agents to collect it, all that is meant to please the Lord. So if we forget that, then we stand in between the Lord and His service and we block devotional service. And then the loving exchange between the Lord and His devotees, that's what we are blocking. To overcome that, Rishabhadeva, understanding in a smiling way, using his internal potency, he makes the rain to come. As Indra himself will say in this prayer, that he will try to use the Bhaktavatsala aspect of the Lord as a token to beg forgiveness. I have committed an offense. I thought myself as a big controller. My dear Lord, you are the original Father. You are the supreme spiritual master. You are the original proprietor, and you are competent to chastise the offenders. So, please be merciful and please forgive me. You have the right to chastise the dependent. So King Indra says, so you are the Supreme Father, the Supreme Spiritual Master and the Supreme King. Therefore you have the right to chastise all living entities whenever there is any discrepancy in their behavior. Then comes the important line. The Father, the Spiritual Master and the Supreme Executive Officer of the state are always well-wishers of their sons, their students and their citizens respectively. As such, the well-wishers have the right to chastise their dependents. So, here King Indra goes on to say that, kindly excuse me, my lord, because I am fool number 1. Being falsely proud of my material opulences, I committed a great offense. If you think, my lord, that the offense is very great and cannot be excused, then I appeal to you that I am your eternal servant. So this is where King Indra, I felt, displaying the cards of Krishna being a Bhaktavatsala. When you tap into that aspect of the Lord, I appeal to you that I am your eternal servant. And why do you appear in this world? You appear to give protection to your eternal servants. And I am your eternal servant, and therefore kindly protect me. Kindly excuse me. Please accept my prostrated obeisances. And then he goes on to describe. Due to my gross ignorance, I created a great disturbance in Vrindavana by sending torrents of rains and heavy hailstorm. I acted out of severe anger caused by your stopping the sacrifice. In this case, it is a growing prowess, the opulent strength of Rishabhadeva is growing, being envious of that, he is stopping the rain. But reading these prayers gives us an understanding of if we have done the mistake out of envy, how do we pray to the Lord? What should be the mood? And when we're discussing this particular mood, where we have got the right mood, right attitude, this right mood and attitude, giving up the envious mentality, sets us up in the right mentality to perform the Sankirtana yagna. So we'll focus on the Sankirtan yagna as to how Prabhupada in the 3rd and the 4th chapters of Bhagavad Gita, whenever the concept of yagna is described, he will make a point that everybody can perform Sankirtan yagna. It is very easy. It is prescribed in this age of Kali. So he logically presents in a way that we need to please the Supreme Lord. The best process to do that is sacrifice. And in Kali Yuga, you may not be able to find all the necessary ingredients, the persons, and the right time and place and circumstance to do those sacrifices. Still, in Kali Yuga, the best way to please the Lord is through Sankirtan yagna. You just need to clap your hands, chant the name of the Lord loudly. So everybody and anybody can participate in the Sankirtan yagna. So Sankirtan yagna, Prabhupada also describes elsewhere that it involves Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, everything. So Shravanam, Kirtanam involves hearing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam in the association of the devotees. So by us devotees doing this act of chanting, glorifying the Lord, hearing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we get the strength to overcome our lower nature. The verse in Bhagavatam which talks about Hridayantasto hi abhadrani, so that gets removed. The other one about Pravishta Karana Randrena, as the sound enters through the ears, it cleans the heart. Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Shamalam, which is inside the heart, that gets cleansed. Salilasya Yatasharat, just as a autumn rain cleans the water in lakes and ponds. Then, there are several instances where there's another instance where we get the strength, forgetting that verse. Satam prasangan mama virya samvitau bhavanti hritkarana rasayanakata. So we get the strength, the viryam, by hearing. And by that we perform this Sankirtan yagna more intensely. And as Prabhupada says, the process is easy and simple. Not only it fixes your material problems, it will not only make you materially happy, but it will also help you advance spiritually. Despite the fact that there is a great scarcity, despite the fact that in Kali Yuga we are overcome by ignorance, Prabhupada says, nonetheless, everyone can perform Sankirtan yagna. Every family in every society can conduct Sankirtan yagna at least every evening. In this way, there will be no disturbance or scarcity of rain. So by this process, we are attracting the mercy of the Lord, as Lord Rishabhadeva is doing. He is pouring His mercy in the land of Ajanaba, through Prabhupada's purports, we understand if we perform Sankirtan yagna, in this Kali Yuga also, the Lord will pour His mercy in the form of rain. So I'll conclude there and see if there are any comments or questions on what we discussed today.
Thank you so much for very instructive graphic class, Prabhu. Personally, I found quite insightful, especially the comment that how to overcome that envy, the tendency from our personal perspective, despite of all my disqualifications, the Lord is allowing me to be engaged in service. That is quite intense, very, again, useful. And also from the perspective of the person who is empowered to do service and perhaps elicit any kind of envy emotions in our case. But that perspective of seeing that the Lord is empowering that person. So it's always all connected with the Lord. So I personally found quite really, really good. Thank you.
It's from Prabhupada's purports, and then this analysis is this way of reflecting and thinking is given in the VT training material, where what is Sambandha, what is Abhidaya. In the Abhidaya section, they will ask you to do this exercise. They will ask you to go through certain verses, reflect and see what verses are directly speaking to you. Then how do you confront your own lower nature? And I can share that one page, section by section, so that's where I'm getting these points from. And this, as you said, can be applied against any of the shortcomings that we have. And if you start to see in that way, then the Lord will show. Another verse from the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, where he prays that let all envious beings be pacified. So that prayer is also good for overcoming envy. And then what I forgot to mention is about Kaliya's pastime. Reading that, I think, is related to overcoming envy. So
I have a question also, perhaps you can help me to understand.
Yeah.
It seems to me that envy can be manifested in different levels, according, of course, level of understanding of spiritual growth.
Yeah.
And in the beginning can be a little more gross in our interaction with others, but then it's more subtle.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a bit difficult to understand when Lord Brahma say to Priyavrata Maharaj, don't be envious of the Lord. So I was just trying to understand how can be envy expressed in the character of Priyavrata Maharaj. Can you explain a bit more about it, please?
Okay. How? Okay. Priyavrata Maharaj. Okay. With my limited understanding, and I don't have complete realization of this aspect, if you are non-envious of an authority, then you will do what they say straight away, without much hesitation, which I'm not at that particular state now, but at least I know I must get there. And this you can double check with other devotees if my understanding is correct. Is that, okay, I've come with a message, Lord Brahma is saying, I've come with a message from the Lord that you must move from brahmacharya ashram and take up rest for life. and become the king, rule. So rather than asking out of why me, why, and so if we're hesitant to execute the orders of the superiors, one reason could be envy, that, oh, you've got all the power, you're just enforcing me, you're forcing me to do this, which means that that is subtle. You have all the power, you're using against me, and you want me to do this. Okay, anyway, let me do it, because... Yeah. So that way of doing, resentment could be a subtle form of envy. This again is based on my understanding. We can double check with, I don't know, Gangeshwar Prabhu or Gopandesh Prabhu or Jagannath Ram Prabhu. So that is next says, okay, you execute, a person says you do it, yes sir, like that. That mentality of high level of surrender. So lacking that and resenting and resisting and giving reasons not to, which many times I do. So that could be the sign of envy, because the Lord has got that potency by which He is enforcing or He is giving that instruction to you or doing that. If you resist it, which means, oh my Lord, you got so much power, huh? That's why you're showing on me, is it? Okay, so let me do it. That is not very grossly against the Lord, but still that, whereas the topmost examples, if we see, which is going to be discussed in the coming month of Damodar, is the mentality of the gopis. So they don't have any of those. If it's going to be helpful to the Lord, take the dust from our feet, let us go to heaven. So let us go to hell also and suffer, no problem. If Lord Krishna headache is gone, take the dust. So Prabhupada in the lecture says, Prabhupada says, take the dust and go. When describing that pastime of Narada Muni going and asking, he thinks he will even do this, take the dust. So they didn't have any, so they were not to be told, don't hesitate, don't be envious of the Lord, just follow. None of them were. Narada Muni goes and tells, take. This is my understanding, but you can, that hesitancy to execute the Lord's order, that resistance, could be a subtle form of envying the Lord's supreme position and His power. But you double check with.
Yeah, I just was trying to understand in case of the Kumaras, when the Brahmas were instructed to
Kumaras, yeah.
And they said no, and
Yes.
their attitude is not judged as envious. So in one sense, even is glorified. No?
So the Kumaras
And
are
it's
not.
the authority.
The Kumaras are. So at that time, okay. So it's still the Lord's order to create progeny, and that's why Brahma is creating for Kumaras, and then comes Rudra. Okay. So in the case of Kumaras, how do you see them disobeying? Okay. Again, based on my limited understanding, is that after they disobey, what are they doing is they are still engaged in the Lord's service of devotional service, which is, I feel, is higher than creating progeny, getting involved. For that higher purpose, they are declining to disobey the Lord's Brahma's order. And there is this exception that if a guru asks you or a parents ask you to get married, you can say no, and still you don't get any reaction. That is only one instance I've heard that you can say a no and still not get afflicted, especially getting married. And so that act of the Kumaras pleased the Lord, and thereby later on if we see how they progress, they were not stuck in the Brahman realization, they were elevated to understanding the personal form of the Lord. The aroma touches their nose. So if you see the whole end result of them, after giving up the service of Brahma, they did not degrade to coming down to material platform and do something else, but they were still going up. And in fact, they are one of the Sampradaya-Acharya, so which means they have won the heart of the Lord by engaging in devotional service, so that He empowers them to become Sampradaya-Acharyas rather than becoming a demigod or a big position within the material universe. What they have achieved as the end result is they have become the confidential associates of the Lord, that He makes them a Sampradaya Acharya. So there is an action and then there is a result, and how it pleases the Lord. So in both the cases, the bottom line is it pleasing to the Lord? And what am I doing to please the Lord in whatever position that I am in? I want to stay as a brahmachari, okay. What's your motive behind doing it? To please the Lord, okay. I'm getting married, I'm going to enjoy all the opulence and this, what's the motive? To please the Lord. So that's why when I was reading the 4th chapter purports of Bhagavad Gita, the concept of attachment was described. How if you are too materially attached, you may become slack in your spiritual practice. So, staying as a brahmachari, or are you slack in your material practice or not? If you are strong in your material practice, then that pleases the Lord. So then that's how you progress. So the way I see is, you analyze based on the result it's producing and how the Lord is pleased or displeased. So that's how I'll see. So the Lord is we can see that the Lord is pleased that the Kumaras are made as the Sampradaya Acharyas, and a line is coming from them. And they are given an exalted position like that instead of a controller or a demigod. So the effect we can analyze and then see. This is my understanding. As I said, you can double check with other devotees. Okay, we'll stop here. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.